Today we're sitting down with Kylah Morrison, General Manager of Mets Ignited for Western Australia and South Australia. Today we'll learn a little bit more about Kylah's role, along with how Mets Ignited continues to foster an innovative and collaborative way of thinking to make mines safer, more productive and sustainable. Welcome Kylah, it's great to have you here today. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your professional background and your current role at Mets Ignited?
Yeah, sure. So I started out as an engineer, mechanical engineering background, but I started with Woodside in drilling and completions. So working out on the rigs, planning workover campaigns and the like, and then moved to Kylahs into a reliability engineering role, and eventually decided corporate wasn't for me. So I started my own business and started out business coaching and then pivoted into leadership development, which is when I started the Women in Leadership program that I run today with a colleague of mine. And it was through that work in my business that I got on the Chamber of Commerce up in Kylahs. We were living and working up there. And that's when it all made sense for me. You know, I'd worked corporate, I'd worked small business, but I'd never sort of seen the link of being able to join the two, understand better the Australian supply chains and how government sort of fit into that. So if you like, that was my first now I know why I did engineering moment and have chosen the opportunities that I have in my career. And it was at an event that I was speaking at, building my speaking portfolio, career options, that Peter Clark from Mets Ignited approached me and said, would you consider a role with us?
Wow.
And so, yes, they were recruiting for the General Manager for Western Australia and South Australia to boost their stakeholder engagement over the side of the country.
So what type of goals have Mets Ignited, reached in 2021?
Yeah, so Mets Ignited is one of 6 federal funded growth centres, and so all of the growth centres are ending their funding period end of this financial year, so end of June 2022. And so each of the growth centres is looking at what does the operations look like beyond that period. And so for us, it's about leveraging what we've done in the last 5 or 6 years. We run masterclass programs, accelerators to, build the capability of vendors. And what we noticed in that time was a lot of stranded technology. And what do I mean by stranded technology? You've got the research sector that, typically the larger companies often develop technological solutions for a bespoke problem, and you don't have the capability within the company to keep them updated and used within the organisation. And even if they are updated and used in the organisation, the value is only held within that organisation, therefore stranded. On the other side, you've got research institutions that are really good at developing research often, but sometimes miss that link with industry and the ability to commercialise technology through the vendors. And so Mets Ignited is trying to bring that stranded technology into commercialised into the vendor supply chain, and also connecting the investors as well.
So how does your role fit into those goals, and what are you doing to leverage that?
Well, that I guess comes back to when Peter Clark approached me for the role and I got chatting to Adrian Beer, our CEO.
Yes.
Obviously, with my background living and working in Kylahs, regional WA for 9 years, I bring that regional development perspective. The Pilbara is a huge contributor to the national economy, and so I bring that background, but also with my Women in Leadership development programs that I've run and the work that I did consulting with Aboriginal corporations, I bring a different lens, I guess, to the organisation. And as we know, we're facing skill shortages, and with the likes of future minerals and battery materials, those demand curves coming towards us, that's only going to intensify. And so we need to look a little bit more broadly at our talent pool, and I think we need to be more diverse and inclusive to make sure that we're considering all of those minority groups and how we can best leverage them in going forward in this next wave of commercialisation.
So what initiatives is Mets Ignited running in that space?
There's a number of initiatives that are going on. One specifically that I can talk to is the Electric Mining Consortium. So they were formed, in the last couple of years because there was that key driver from industry and in particular from sort of the tier 2 miners that can't fund their own transition necessarily to more environmentally sound methods of mining. And so they got together and they're working through a number of projects, I should say. And one of those is people and capability, or the future workforce, and what people and capability skills we're going to need to focus on.
So what do you think is the main opportunity the sector should embrace at the moment in the short term, and then the future challenges in the long term that we do have to address?
Yeah, really good question. I think in the short term, the biggest issues that we're facing are that skilled workforce.
Yep.
And like I said about being creative with that is going to be really crucial. So in the longer term, obviously we need to be more sustainable in the way that we produce in our mining and environmentally sound. But the likes of hydrogen fueled haul trucks or battery operated machinery, that's around the corner, but it's not here tomorrow. And so I think there's a lot of short-term, quick wins that we can have. And a great example of that would be MaxMine's technology. They've got a platform that they've developed, and they basically, through gamification, they extract a whole lot of data from operating mine sites, and they clean that data and make sure it's really quality data. And then they use that to feed that back to site to show the people on the ground, the operators, the production superintendents, exactly how each and every team is performing on any specific segment of the operations. And by doing that and putting it on like a leaderboard, and having teams and night shift versus day shift competing on that to improve what they worked on the day before, you are naturally, through gamification, engaging your workforce and increasing productivity, which is great for mining. If we can increase productivity, we can increase revenue. The absolute gem in that story is that what they found is not only did they get increased productivity, but they also then, because equipment was used properly and not being damaged, and they were being more efficient, they were reducing carbon emissions at the same time.
As a leader with a background in engineering, how do you go about leading and motivating teams from different disciplines?
I've identified that a lot of the skills for the leaders that you need are those critical human skills, sometimes referred to as the soft skills, but really they are what makes or breaks a team. And so you can have different disciplines in terms of your technical side of things, engineering, maintenance, operations. You can also have different disciplines, particularly in my role, where we're going cross-sector, government, academia, and all those types of things. So for me, the key thing is trying to work out what are the drivers for the other party, what are the key things that or needs that they need to satisfy, and then how can we potentially work in with that.
So then, as a leader, how do you foster more collaborative and innovative thinking from your teams?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to working out what are the needs of each of the individuals and trying to provide that psychologically safe environment. And I know that is a buzzword that goes around a lot, but calling out behaviours where, people might make a joke and in a particular setting that might be fine. And then letting them know that actually, if so-and-so was in the room or someone, from this background, that would be interpreted a different way. And so not being afraid to call those types of things out, I think that builds that psychological safety. And therefore, when you have that trust and rapport in your team, you're more likely to foster those harebrained ideas that people feel safe to share without being shot down or ridiculed.
And speaking of working together, how has MetsIgnited and AusIMM been working together recently in creating, a higher level of industry growth?
Yeah, well, the work that AusIMM do is fantastic in the upskilling and the bringing together of people in the industry, which is excellent. And most recently, our CEO, Adrian Bear, has been on your Thought Leadership series.
Yes.
And again, I think it's events like that really showcase to people, these are the key themes that the industry is facing or seeing, and this is what we need to be doing to work towards it.
So you attended the Thought Leadership series in Perth here?
Yes.
And you mentioned how Reconciliation WA was a key highlight for you.
Yeah, so on the ESG Thought Leadership series, there was an event here in Perth and Reconciliation WA was represented. And I just, exactly like you said, not being afraid to have those difficult conversations about what we could be doing and definitely what we could be doing better. You know, there was great discussion from members of the audience challenging what was being said, you know, more broadly, and saying, well, actually, maybe we're not doing enough in that space. And that's what's going to change the sector for good. And that's what's going to mean that we will be able to continue and see, you know, the benefits of the job creation and the value to the economy when we're doing it in a more sustainable and environmentally sound way.
Well, thanks so much, Kylah, for speaking with us today and joining us for this session. It was great to hear more about your background, where you've been. You've gone globally with your career, which is so exciting, and the amazing work you're doing with diversity and inclusion in the sector as well. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. You can find out more information about AusIMM and our latest updates via the website at www.ausimm.com.